This segment of DelmarvaLife is brought to you by For All Seasons Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center.
First responders arrive on the scene in the face of tragedy before anyone else, therefore the term first responder. It might be a home on fire, it might be an individual who's been assaulted, it might be a car accident. We don't always stop to think about the trauma that the first responder experiences on a daily basis. Well, here to talk about a very unique outreach program to support the mental health of our first responders, this is Beth Ann Dorman. She's the CEO for All Seasons. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me about this unique work that you're doing with first responders.
Yeah, so we are partnering with our first responders in Talbot County, and we are using this as a pilot program, but we are working directly with the first responder community, including our EMS, our 911 dispatchers, our fire, and our police and sheriff's departments, to infuse mental health services into the daily life of the first responders.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What is the level of trauma, I guess is the right word, right? What is the level of trauma for first responders, and why is it so important to address it?
So when you think about car accidents, when you think about first responders responding to a 911 call, even when you think about what's happening in that 911 dispatch center, trauma happens in all different ways. And so it may be a difficult car accident where there's been a fatality, might be a house fire where there has been a child who's been involved. Maybe it is a domestic violence situation. And we think about the rescuers that come to our aid.
Right.
We don't always think about the fact that when the day is done, that rescuer has that situation to take home with them. And so what we're talking about is all levels of trauma, and being able to make sure that this program is going to put some peer supports in place so that, you know, the first level of their support will be their coworkers. But then if we get into debriefing situations, so we'll go in and trauma debrief with the first responder community. If they need additional support, then we become an ally and a referral source, so that maybe it's not 6 months of therapy that someone needs, but maybe they just need to come in for a couple of sessions, and we ensure that we can provide that next level of care.
And I guess the first responder responding multiple times, that all of this piles up.
Well, sure, because, you know, how often were we all raised? I know I was raised, my father was a captain on the city fire department.
Yeah.
And so I grew up as a child knowing that those things just happened. We didn't have to talk about it, but you picture it sort of like bricks laying on top of someone. It just keeps going down and down, because the reality is there are days where you don't have the opportunity to sit and talk for an hour because there's another call. And so when you don't put these stopgaps in place to be able to say, how's everybody doing?
Right.
Then you just have to continue to go, go, go. And we know for anyone, when you are not addressing daily things that cause stress and anxiety, then we end up in situations where perhaps we're not paying attention to our mental wellness.
Yeah. So how do you create a space where someone feels comfortable with talking about what they're going through?
So part of it for us is being a part of the community. So we are meeting as a task force, and we are having the leaders come together. And the goal is that when I walk into a building, or Lisa Lee, our chief clinical officer who's doing this with me, when we walk in, people are not going to say, oh gosh, here we go, it's therapy time. That we're a part, we're infused. So we've done work in the 911 dispatch center. We sit with the responders. We get a feeling for what it's like. We're riding along in police cars. We're riding along in the ambulance. And then when there is a tragedy that's happening, when we showed up to do a trauma debriefing a few weeks ago, we're familiar and we're trusted. And so it's really been about building trusting relationships and being able to say, we want to be a part of what's happening. We want to understand the culture of first responders. And then we're skilling up our clinical team, and they then become experts in the first responder culture, so that when someone from first responder community comes in, there's already a sense of sort of what's the need.
Right. So if somebody comes to the point finally of, you know what, I think maybe I do need a little help, how can we get it?
So we have crisis appointments available, and they are first responder appointments. So we have a real good triage system. Our office is doing open access right now, which is walk-in services. But then we also are slating some appointments just for the first responder community. And we've been really blessed to have a local donor who has given us some funding to help support these appointments, so there's no cost to the first responder.
That is awesome.
It's just been life-changing for us to be able to say, yes, we know that you need to come in, and no, it doesn't matter what insurance you have, whether or not, you know, we are looking at a copay or not. Just come in and be taken care of.
Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Beth Ann Dorman, For All Seasons.
Thank you.
Wonderful having you.